Look at that. Cool off this rail too.
You like that?
I have a sweet tooth right now.
Oh yeah? For what?
Some caramel. What is going on, my beautiful LARPers and LARPettes? Today we are going to go over the brand new spanking IWI Carmel. Caramel? Caramel? The new sweetness from IWI. Now, the Carmel has been teased at quite a few SHOT Shows now. Every time I saw it at SHOT Show, I was drooling over it and always asked, when is it going to come to the US? And they never quite got it here in the US up until just recently, maybe about a couple weeks ago it was actually released. So the new Carmel has finally arrived and I was able to get my hands on it and shoot it, and now I'm going to give you guys my impressions and go over some of the details that are on this gun, and also go over some of the things that I didn't really like about it, and what I think you guys should be aware of. But before I get into all that, what is my relationship with IWI? My good friend Jeremy works at IWI, and he has been a good friend for a couple years now. And I absolutely had to ask, can I get one of these in for review? And he was kind enough to get one of these sent out to me for review. No payment was involved whatsoever. They just sent the firearm out to me. So thank you, Jeremy, for getting me this in my hands. I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank the channel sponsor, Atlantic Firearms, for sponsoring my YouTube endeavors. I really appreciate those guys. Go ahead and check them out. Check out their YouTube. They're always getting banned for some reason on YouTube. So it's good to support people that are always trying to, or that YouTube is always trying to censor and Instagram is always trying to censor. Now, starting at the front here, you get this very nice compensator. It does a really good job. I am going to switch that out though to a JK Armament War Comp. I think that's what they're called. So I can put my JK suppressors on here. But nothing wrong with this compensator. Just want to have it as a suppressor host because I have not tried it with a suppressor on there, and I do hear a lot of good things that this is a great suppressor host. Now, moving on to the barrel. The barrel is a 16-inch 1-in-7 twist hammer forged chrome lined pencil barrel. Pencil barrels, it's a love and hate relationship for me. So pencil barrels are extremely light. I do love how lightweight they are compared to a normal barrel, but they do get very hot if you're shooting a lot of rounds through it. That, in conjunction with the short stroke piston that this firearm is a short stroke piston setup, it does have a higher chance of getting hotter on you. And this one got extremely hot for me while I was out there. It got uncomfortably hot at one point. I did shoot around 850 rounds or so that day that I shot that. So it got very hot. I was loading mag after mag, and yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm going to say be conscious of is the heat that's going to be coming out for this guy. I recommend wearing a glove or outfitting this rail with some panels or something like that so they can dissipate some of that heat or keep some of that heat off of your hands. Definitely wear a glove if you're going to be shooting this pretty fast and just dumping rounds into nothing like I do. Oh yeah, look at that. Cool off this rail too. But moving on back, this is a short stroke piston like I said earlier, and it has two positions on here. It has a regular setting, which is the R on one side, and the suppressed setting, which is the S. I did not try it suppressed like I said, but I am going to try it suppressed. Now moving on to the rail. Now this is a topic of discussion that I think we all need to have. What do you think about certain size rails? Do you want the thinnest rail or do you want the biggest, beefiest looking rail? Because this rail is probably the biggest, beefiest rail that I've ever felt. I hear mixed reviews from people. I hear some people with bigger hands want a bigger rail. I hear people with normal size hands want a smaller rail. Some people don't really give a shit on what the rail is as long as it's functional, right? Now, this rail is fully functional. It is a very nice aluminum rail, and as far as aluminum goes on this gun or metal parts, you got this rail that goes all the way up to here where you see these cutouts here, and basically the rest of it is plastic. You got plastic all the way back except for some hinges and buttons and stuff like that. Also, the top 1913 pick rail is aluminum from the front all the way to the rear. Back to the rail. The rail has M-LOK slots on the left, the right, and on the bottom of it. I have not tried to put a laser on here. Again, once I start getting this set up with lights and lasers, all that, I'm going to give you guys an update video on how it's performing. But as of now, basic bare bones, it is giving you a lot of options and a lot of real estate to put your lights and lasers and all that stuff on there. Now, the rail isn't uncomfortable. It's just like holding your phone, literally. I'm holding my phone most of the time, and it's just this square, blocky thing. And if you're looking at it, the phone is literally like the same size as that rail. So it's nothing uncomfortable for me or abnormal for me to be holding all the time. It's just a lot bigger than any other rail that I've felt or on my AR-15s or whatever I have. I do hope or I wish that there were aftermarket rails available for this so I can see the differences, because as of now, aesthetically, this thing looks super badass to me. I think the way it looks is like a, what is it? Like a ACR and a Beretta ARX 100. Is that what it's called? The ARX 100? It's like those two had a baby and created the Carmel. Looks super badass to me. A lot of people don't like the looks, but I like this chunkiness on this rifle. It's just the ergonomics of that rail are just like holding a square brick. But again, the rail's fully functional, really nice. I did have an issue where these two screws on the left and right were backing out just a tad, and I just went in and cranked them down. It was probably around 500 rounds-ish where I started to see those screws back out and notice some jiggling with that rail. Just left and right, just a tiny bit where I noticed like, hey, what's going on here? So I just cranked those down. I didn't even put Loctite on it, and I shot the other, 400 and something rounds out of it, and they did not back out. So if you do pick up the Carmel, just check all your screws, and these two here, I would just take them out, put some Loctite, put them back in, and guarantee you're not gonna have an issue with those. Now, for those of you that are gonna ask what sights I'm using and this little grip thingy here, this is from Strike Industries. These two just came out from Strike, really nice sights, and this squared off little grip here is also from Strike Industries. You can like stack a bunch of them if you want, but I think that kind of fit the squareness of this gun here. Moving on to the charging handle. This is an ambidextrous charging handle, and I think it's really neat on how you switch that charging handle over. So for you guys that are used to AKs and stuff like that, you can give yourself a reason to just swap that charging handle over and do your commie reloads, right? But if you're a normie like me, you could just switch it over to this side and reload it like normal. So really, really cool that you're able to switch it that way. Now moving on to the rest of the receiver here, you do have an upper and lower receiver, and that portion on the upper receiver from like the rail here, you can see like this V cut. That's all polymer, and then you get this slit right here, and that's polymer down as well. You get this polymer dust cover here. Does not come with a forward assist, but it's cool that they made this little indent here in the bolt, just so if you do get a failure to go into batteries, you can just press that forward there. Now the dust cover is going to be one of my downsides to this. The rail wasn't really a downside because that's all personal preference, right? Some people like bigger, some people like smaller. The heat, again, when you get a piston and the thin barrel like that, it's more prone to heat. There's workarounds for that. You can just wear a glove or something like that, so it's not a huge issue. This, though, is one of the things that I'm going to say is a little bit more of a design flaw or a more concerning issue for me. So with this dust cover up, right, and the buttstock folded, you can charge that handle, but you see the dust cover right there on the buttstock. This dust cover, when I put this buttstock cheek riser, and I'll get into the cheek riser and buttstock in a second, but when you put that cheek riser all the way down and you have your dust cover closed, when you're going to fire off that first round, it's going to go like that. It will eject in that first position there. If you were to rise this or put this buttstock cheek weld up one position, it was causing malfunctions, and that to me is something that I'm just gonna have to think about while I'm stowing this in this configuration here, if I'm going to pull it from a bag and go to work while the buttstock is folded. So in this position, or any position past position 1, is not going to allow you to fully eject the spent casing out of this rifle here. Now on the flip side, I did try it with the dust cover completely open and this completely at the top last position, and it was ejecting good. It was ejecting kind of erratic. I think I was getting some burns on my arms. Again, I have video of that if you haven't seen it already. Alright, I'm gonna do it again, but with this just... burns. Works though. But it was ejecting in this position, so if you're going to stow it in a bag or something like that, just make sure your dust cover is open, or if you're going to stow it with the dust cover up, just make sure this cheek riser is completely all the way down in that position there. Because if you don't, and you're going to shoot it in the folded position like this, and your cheek riser and your dust cover don't match the positions that they're supposed to, then it's gonna definitely have some malfunction problems. So, design flaw, I don't know. IWI, if I am completely butchering something on this, go ahead and let me know. I'm not trying to lead my subscribers in the wrong direction. Again, I am just pointing out the things that I found while I was shooting this. For you out there that are picking up a Carmel, just be conscious of how you're stowing the stock folded and the dust cover. Now moving on to the controls, everything on here is ambidextrous. So you got an ambidextrous safety selector, you have an ambidextrous magazine release, and you also have a ambidextrous bolt lock bolt release. Now the bolt release on the right side, it's an awkward position for me, guys. It's my finger's not long enough, so that's most likely a me issue. I'm just born with teeny tiny hands, and I can't reach certain things on certain guns, and this goes for a ton of different guns. Every gun that I have ever used, sometimes my little baby hands will let me down, and this is one of them. So I'm not just going to poke at this gun and say that this is a fail or anything like that. This is just a me issue. But in this position right here, I can barely reach that bolt release here. So I would have to take my hand off the grip completely and push that bolt release there. Now I can definitely stretch my finger out, but I don't have the strength to push that down with one finger. So I'd have to kind of use two fingers there. So I ended up just opting out and using the paddle on this side. And on this side, you do have an extremely large ping pong paddle, whatever you call it there. And it's super easy to push that like a normal AR-15, right? But there are other guns that are with that right side release are a lot easier for me to reach than this one here. So if you have longer fingers, I'm super jealous of you. Moving on to the trigger. The trigger is a proprietary trigger. So you cannot drop in your normal AR-15 triggers, but this trigger, I don't really see anything wrong with it. It's really, really nice actually. It is a two-stage trigger, and you have a little bit of play right there before you get to the wall, and then you get that full break, and the break is really, really nice. It's really surprising how good that trigger is. Even if they were aftermarket triggers, I don't really see me ever upgrading that trigger at all. I think I'm just gonna leave that trigger the way it is. I was able to get extremely fast splits out there. It's so much so that I think I was bump firing at one point, which was really cool. So yeah guys, super fast splits on that. Mag release is in a nice position there for my little short fingers, and I am able to do really nice reloads. It does have a nice flare at the bottom down there to do some quick reloads. The grip is just your normal AR-15 B5 Systems grip there. Now moving on back, you do have a couple sling attachment points on here. So you have the left and right up here, which are your QD sling attachment points, and then you do have on the stock back here these little loops where you can add hooks for your sling there if you needed to. Now the stock on the Carmel is a very, very nice stock. It does have this cheek riser here, like I mentioned earlier. It has a bunch of positions. I think it's like 4 or 5 different positions here, but 2 buttons on the left and right, and it is a very comfortable cheek riser, cheek weld piece there. It does give that ACR-ish aesthetic back here. Now you do have the hinge over here on this side that you just push and it will lock it over like that. Now this isn't actually locked in, it's just like tension, I guess, and you can just open that just like that. Now I've seen some people having problems with this hinge locking correctly. They have to kind of like slam it and stuff like that, but mine, I don't need to do anything too crazy to open that, you know, just like it's good to go. So no problem whatsoever with that hinge for me, or that locking mechanism. Maybe if you're just like kind of barely doing it, but just lock it open, guys. It's not that crazy. You also have about 6 adjustment points back here, so if you do have crazy long arms like I don't have, you can definitely adjust this to whatever position you want. And it is a really nice button back there that you're getting, and a rubber butt pad on the back there. So that is basically the Carmel, guys. I went over all the details on this. I didn't get too much in detail on the operating or the bolts or any of that jazz there, because YouTube doesn't allow gunsmithing, so I don't like taking guns apart and stuff like that. But overall impressions, guys, I shot around 850 rounds and it worked reliably for all those 850 rounds. Aside from that heat, it was tolerable every time I cooled it down. Shootability wise, this gun is one of the softest shooting short stroke pistons that I've ever shot. This thing kind of surprised me because it's not really the lightest rifle. I think it's around 8 pounds, but it's also not the heaviest. But all the polymer kind of told me like, okay, this thing's gonna kind of jump at me a little bit, but it is very, very soft shooting, and that's just bone stock out of the factory. So I'm guessing once I put that suppressor on there and play with certain loads of ammo, it's going to get even softer, and the more I shoot it, it's probably going to get even softer than that. So I am very, very happy on the way this performs in shootability and how fast I can get on the splits. I'm all about speed for some reason. It's just no point if you're not hitting anything, but it's really fun to shoot fast. But I do love that they kept all the familiarity from an AR-15 to this, even though there is some proprietary parts like that trigger and a couple of other things. It is a chonky boy. I personally love the way this thing looks. I think this looks very unique in itself. Overall, I think it is a very, very solid performer. I am very interested in the reliability of this thing. I don't think 850 rounds is enough for me to see if this is a completely reliable firearm, but so far it's been reliable for me. I'm gonna try to get at least 2,000 rounds before I get an update, maybe 3,000 rounds before I give you guys an actual update. But don't just take my word for it, guys. Do your own research. This gun has been out for quite some time now. It just hasn't been imported into the US up until now. So I'm looking at all those reports and hoping it's going to be just as reliable as it is from the other generations. I'm hoping the more updates that they put to these, the more reliable that they're gonna get. But I will give you guys my findings in another video. But what do you guys think of the Carmel? Do you pronounce it Carmel or do you pronounce it Carmel? I think the American way is Carmel. Do you think there's some cons to it? Do you think there's some pros to it? So far, the cons aren't enough for me to say, yeah, this is a trash gun. To me, there's a lot that I really like about this. Again, the looks are super chonky. It feels super chonky, but it looks really cool to me. So biggest concern is that dust cover. Just be conscious of how you're going to be stowing this thing and stowing it the proper way, or just stowing it the way it's not going to malfunction on you. I think the Carmel is definitely going to make its mark in the short stroke piston world. But thank you guys so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you all. Love you all. Catch you in the next one.